Legend of Zelda and all respective images and videos are property of Shigeru Miyamoto, Nintendo, and any and all other respective owners and creators. All footage in this video is used for the purposes of critique parody under fair use. Please support the official release. And now, the character whose destiny I am here to foretell is none other than the great and lovable Link. What? Did you have someone else in mind? With the new Legend of Zelda coming out, it's time to break out the Hyrule Historia because this one is going to be a doozy. Hello everybody and welcome back to another fantastic episode of One True Theory, where we have decided to tackle the latest installment of one of the most beloved video game series, especially here amongst the Midnight Geeks, The Legend of Zelda. The Legend of Zelda is a fantastic series which has withstood the test of time quite literally on some occasions, along with several different console generations and sometimes finicky motion controls, and the worst of all, Triforce heroes. But every series IP which has withstood the test of time and went on to still produce superb quality games alongside some of the more lackluster titles is a feat not many can accomplish. It's not something every company or even every character can do. I mean, Master Chief can only shoot so many aliens and Mario can drive as many carts as he wants. Link and the Legend of Zelda series are a whole new beast. But Legend of Zelda and Nintendo are always able to pick up and move forward no matter what, and part of this comes from the very expansive universe Legend of Zelda resides in. It is one of the only Nintendo series who have a whole bunch of games, but almost all of them are considered canonical in one way, shape, or form. I just really wish I could trade Triforce Heroes for Hyrule Warriors. Please let me trade! And the way Nintendo has managed to keep this series alive is by not letting themselves get pinned down to one storyline specifically. They were able to create a truly expansive universe thanks to one factor: time travel. Storyline specifically. They were able to create a truly expansive universe thanks to one factor: time travel. With the nifty little gift of Ocarina of Time, Nintendo was then able to make nearly any kind of game that it wanted as long as it applied to the general rules and themes of the timeline they placed it in. And with Breath of the Wild coming out, that leaves just one major question. What timeline is Breath of the Wild going to be a part of, and where in this timeline is it going to be? We'll get to the bottom of this in no time. I've brewed the coffee, I have the Hyrule Historia in hand, let's crack this mystery. Now, in order to dissect this mystery, this will be broken up in three distinct categories: geography and landmarks, technology, and plot relevance and lore background. Now, when we look at the world of Breath of the Wild, there are several different things we can note about the generalized terrain. First of all, it's very open. There are distinct pockets of civilization, but they are not very well connected, which rules out the adult timeline because Spirit Tracks left the world very well connected by, well, Spirit Tracks. Spirit Tracks left the world very well connected by, well, train tracks. It also doesn't help that they refer to the kingdom as Hyrule as opposed to New Hyrule, so it is safe to say geographically the adult timeline is out. The next crucial piece of evidence in regards to geography of Breath of the Wild is one of the most famous landmarks in Legend of Zelda, the Temple of Time. The Temple of Time's existence in and of itself is a heavy piece of evidence ruling out the downfall or Ganon's timeline because the Temple of Time doesn't exist in this timeline. In the downfall timeline, the Master Sword was lost from its place in the Temple of Time and left in a forested location, as we can see in A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds. This is the Temple of Time, so the downfall timeline is out. The existence of the Temple of Time would also be another mark against the adult timeline, since the Temple of Time is still currently underwater in the adult timeline. The reason the Temple of Time is so important is because it only exists in the child timeline and the unified timeline. Another look at Breath of the Wild and we see the state of the Temple of Time. The Temple of Time is in a poor and dilapidated condition. There are holes in the structure and there are vines growing everywhere. This can't be the unified timeline because we see the Temple of Time in Ocarina of Time, the last game of the unified timeline, and it's in this pristine condition like it was from Skyward Sword and probably all the way throughout there. And now we can talk about geography all we want, but none of that is going to do us any good if we don't dabble into some more of the great bay of information we have to deliver in this theory. So let's move on. Let's take a good hard look at the technology in the game and see how that lines up with all of our respective timelines. The tech we see in the game is off the charts. I mean, you have the Sheikah tablet, plate, the paraglider thingy, bomb arrows, a device that apparates different shaped bombs out of seemingly nowhere, and not to mention the giant Goliath that can shoot out giant lasers at you. Like, really, how can that fit in any timeline? Well, it obviously didn't come from the Spirit Tracks / adult timeline, because I doubt all of these things started appearing out of nowhere and they just decided to not upkeep their trains and their train track. And to put it quite simply, you don't go from trains to, well, this. This also doesn't mesh well with the Downfall timeline's level of technology. We see a lot of magical items in these games, but none of them which rival the level of ingenuity and technical marvel, and maybe a little bit of magic, that we see here in Breath of the Wild. We come back to the Unified timeline, where we have seen some impressive ancient technology, but nothing on the caliber of what we've seen in Breath of the Wild thus far. Those time control orbs were pretty cool, but everything as a whole still doesn't mesh very well with the Unified timeline. I think we can all pretty much see where this is going, but for the sake of absolute clarity, let's just take a look at the plot relevance and lore of the game series in order to find out where this game's going to be taking place. Plot relevance has the strongest amount of evidence for this theory. As we see the universe of Legend of Zelda and Breath of the Wild, we can see just clearly how it matches up with the specific timeline in question based on the lore alone. Now, the plot is not very evident in any of the gameplay we've seen in Breath of the Wild so far, but what we've seen is more than enough for the trained eye. Now, there are two major things we need to look at when we determine how plot relevance plays into figuring out this dilemma. The first major thing is the main antagonist, who is referred to as Calamity Ganon. And the second plot relevant detail is the location and condition of the Master Sword. First, let's talk about Calamity Ganon. Calamity Ganon is basically just a fancy way of saying Ganon's spirit, or the spirit of demise who manifested itself into Ganon after Skyward Sword. When you fight Ganondorf, you have to not only kill the physical body, but the spirit as well in order to finish him off completely and make him go through a proper reincarnation cycle. The last time we see Ganondorf is a dead giveaway of this game's timeline verification. Ganondorf's last installment in the Unified timeline was Ocarina of Time, and his first is technically through Demise. There's no mention of Ganon in between these two games, which is why the great wizard Vati takes up the spot between these two. He was still trying to be reborn, specifically into the body of a Gerudo male, and only one Gerudo male is born every 100 years. Sounds like great odds, honestly, to me, but then again, I don't think I can handle giant Gerudo women. The last time we saw Ganondorf in the adult timeline was with a sword thrust into his face and turned to stone at the bottom of the Great Ocean. This can't possibly be the timeline because Ganondorf's body and spirit are still technically alive. His spirit is sealed away in the Master Sword and his body is surrounded in stone, but he isn't dead, and if he isn't dead, he can't be a spirit. And if they wanted him in the adult timeline, we wouldn't have gotten 2 throwaway villains. 2. Maybe 1, but not 2. Now we have the Downfall timeline, but Ganon's last appearance was being completely taken over by Yuga. When you finished off Yuga Ganon, he did look to die and his spirit did appear to dissipate. However, this is where the issue lies. Ganon's spirit needs to be alive in order to have Calamity Ganon. But in the Downfall timeline, Ganon's body and spirit died, so the next iteration in this timeline would have to be a physical embodiment, as per the curse. Looking past Ganon's appearances in all the timelines, the next most important thing is the Master Sword's location. In the adult timeline, the Master Sword is MIA inside Ganon's body, keeping him in place. In the Downfall timeline, it is most commonly stashed away in the Lost Woods, but in Breath of the Wild, it is inside the Temple of Time. The Temple of Time only exists in the Unified and the Child timeline, but the Temple of Time is looking worse for wear these days, which leaves one option. Out of the 4 timelines we have to choose from, there is only one timeline which holds all the necessary characteristics to have this game belong to it, and that is the Child timeline. The Child timeline has all the necessary geographical conditions, with the Temple of Time and other distinct locations like the Bridge of Eldin and Mount Doom. The tech we see in Breath of the Wild is comparable to what could come about based on the technology we've seen in the Child timeline with games like Twilight Princess, and the Child timeline is the only series of Legend of Zelda games with enough plot relevance to connect itself to Breath of the Wild. The Master Sword is located in the Temple of Time, which resonates really well with the Child timeline considering the ending of Twilight Princess. Ganon's spirit, and only his spirit, is still alive since it was sealed away in the Force Sword, and it isn't impossible to think he escaped over the course of time. We still have to pinpoint exactly where in the timeline this game takes place, and we'll get to the bottom of this next video. So look forward to that in a few days. Until then, Midnighters, if you like part 1 of this Legend of Zelda theory, then be sure to hit that like button. And while you're at it, hit the subscribe button. That way you can catch the second part of this awesome theory along with all of our other awesome content on our channel. Seriously, check it out, it's really great. And if you have anything you want to discuss in the comments below, be sure to, because I will do my best to answer every single one of you. For now, thank you for watching, and have a good night.
A circumvention that writers use in order to convey a topic that audiences can be reasonably expected to recognize. You know, something that you'll be like, oh hey, that's a main character. Or wait a second, that's an antagonist. You know, things like that. Now, there's something important that we
meet NPC villagers, and they look different. They look like your character decided to get hot and heavy with a squid